In this History Police video, I'm reviewing Versailles, the TV show that deals with the life of Louis XIV. But I have to say, it's also very much about the palace itself. I have to admit that I gave an overview of my thoughts about the show that you can check. And now I'm doing season by season, so we're going to start with season 1. There is a lot to like about this show. Mostly the acting is extraordinary. I think the casting is really impeccable. And I love the two actors that are playing Louis XIV and Monsieur Philippe, Duc d'Orléans. Now I'm going to tell you about the plot of the first series, where there are like some timeline issues again, and I think it's a very recurring problem in historical fiction. I do understand why they do that, but sometimes I think removing the real history is kind of undermining the whole show, because the real history is not at this point damaging the whole story itself. So we're going to discuss this, and we're obviously going to discuss, the part that Monsieur Philippe d'Orléans plays in this first series. We're going to discuss him a bit more in details, and we're going to discuss as well Henrietta Anne d'Angleterre. We are going to discuss Henrietta Maria's and Charles I's daughter, who was married to Monsieur Philippe d'Orléans. Again, the ties between French and English courts were very, very strong. The plot of the first series of Versailles the TV show is that a year after his mother's death, the 28-year-old Louis XIV of France begins his development of transitioning his father's Louis XIII of France hunting lodge, Versailles, into a grand palace to create a symbol of absolute monarchy, of absolute power, to create a symbol of grandeur. And the truth is, Louis XIV really succeeded in doing so. Now in the show we pretend that it's a year after his mother's death, but that's actually inaccurate. He started in 1661 trying to find an architect who was going to work with him on this, and his mother was still very much alive in 1661. She died in 1666. So here I don't know why we needed to remove Anne of Austria of the equation. Maybe they just didn't want to kind of deal with the power dynamic between Louis XIV, Anne of Austria, the mother, and Monsieur Philippe d'Orléans, because it's a very difficult dynamic. What I mean by that is that she gave birth to two sons that she really loved, but at the same time she had a clear favorite. Her favorite was obviously Louis. And so I think because the show is also about the relationship between Louis XIV and Philip, I think by removing completely Anne of Austria, not engaging with her, not engaging with that relationship and that timeline, meant that they could really focus on the two brothers. However, I think that removing her means that you don't really understand the type of loving but also difficult relationship between the two brothers. For example, we know that Anne of Austria called her son Philip my sweet little girl for a very long time, and it was as if she was trying to diminish his masculinity, and people blamed Philip's effeminate attitude on Anne of Austria. Also, another thing is the fact that in times she was extremely close to Philip. She showed extreme affection to him, and then she discarded him again. And I think this complex, real historical relationship is not at all portrayed in Versailles. And I think here it's a mistake, because then you don't really understand the loving but rivalry relationship between the two brothers. And we just focus on the two brothers. It's really well done in many ways, but we miss that kind of element. In that first series, there's also the discussion that Louis XIV was haunted by what happened when he was younger with La Fronde, the massive rebellion that really shook, France. And it explains why he wants to be removed from Paris and be in Versailles and create the court there to bring the nobility with him. So here I think it's quite well done to have this, to have a king that is supposed to represent absolute power, but somehow shows also how trauma can affect very powerful people. The whole first series, if I'm honest, is really about lots of drama and intrigues at Louis XIV's court. But I think it takes you really into the darkness of Louis XIV's court. I think it presents obviously some stuff that absolutely didn't happen. I think there's a lot of fiction, and obviously it's a historical fiction series, but that's one interpretation of Louis XIV's court. What I love is that in many ways it is credible. It is sometimes based on historical, documents, but they don't obviously, and it's not their role, it's not what I'm saying, but they don't really question these documents. They don't really try to make these documents a bit better and try to provide maybe a better interpretation of what actually happened. So you have also obviously Louis XIV's mistresses, but there's this idea that Maria Theresa of Spain, his wife, would have been unfaithful to him. This one just doesn't fly, doesn't stick on the wall, because Maria Theresa would have never done that. It's so risky for women to be unfaithful, but also where would she have been unfaithful? So I think here we have a lot of intrigues and scandals that didn't necessarily happen. I do think though that the introduction of Madame de Montespan, one of the most influential mistresses of Louis XIV, is really well done. I love the actress. I love what she brings, because we can see we can understand the beauty, the charm and the attraction, but at the same time we can really see as well the dark side of her. And it is how I see her, so I think here it kind of fits the bill. There's a scene that I particularly like in Versailles season 1, and it is a scene where Philip has to demonstrate his military skills.
This is your moment to shine, my love.
I obviously love this because there is a strong bond between Philip and Chevalier, his lover. And in this series, the dynamic between them is spectacular and it's so well done. But here you see Chevalier showing support to Philip. And Philip is going to enter the room with all the ministers, and Louis XIV is going to tell him, now you can talk, it's your moment. And you're going to see the pride that, Louis XIV is going to have when his brother shares his military tactics. But also I really do, because it is based on history. So that's what I really like. The truth is, Philippe d'Orléans, though he's criticized as being too effeminate, he's also a very good military leader. He proved that he was a very successful military commander during the War of Devolution in 1667, and Philip had a true kind of gift for war. And I know it sounds a bit weird, but he was really good. And then he was so eager to return to the field, and he would only go back in 1576-77, where he took part in the sieges in Flanders. He had a massive victory that is going to be portrayed in the series later, so I'll discuss that more. But I want you to know that there was an extract from the memoir of Primi Visconti. People of Paris went wild with joy. They really loved Monsieur, but at court they'd wished he'd lost the battle for the king's sake. And though it's something we're going to discuss more when I review the other series of the show, I think it's important to remember that military glory is extremely important to shine, to have his time in the spotlight. Because the truth is, it was really not easy to be in the shadow of Louis XIV all his life. The other great story in series 1 of Versailles is obviously the failed marriage in many ways of Philip and Henrietta Anne of Angleterre. And that's mostly, there's this idea that there's like almost a love triangle between Philip, Louis and Henrietta. That Henrietta was actually in love with Louis and not with Philip. Philip obviously had his own lover, Chevalier. So there is this kind of complex relationship. But what I love in this show is how they show their closeness, how they show that they grew up together, because Henrietta fled to France when she was young with her mother, and how she grew up there as a really French woman. So we have this sweet and loving and kind princess. Henrietta really embodies all these kind of characteristics in many ways, and her death is going to impact the two brothers, but also is going to reunite them. And I'm not sure if historically that would have been true, because I don't think there was a true rivalry between Philip and Louise over Henrietta. But that's what they're trying to do in that show. That's what they're trying to show in that show. And to me, it makes not much sense, mostly because Philip was not in love, truly in love. He probably had affection for Henrietta, but he was not in love with her. And I don't think Louis probably had affection again. But at the end of the day, they were, their cousin. But I don't think he was in love either. So I think that rivalry is a bit misplaced. But I still like the dynamic between the three actors. And I still like the fondness they had for her. And obviously her death really marks kind of the end of some sort of rivalry between the two brothers in the show. And then, there's going to be another person coming in the next series that is so well done. And I won't say more because I want you to watch my review of the series too. I really hope that you enjoyed that History Police video, and I'm so grateful for you for watching. Leave your comments down below and tell me what was your favorite moment of that series, because it is a very complex series, and I really hope as well that we could have like more series of this show, because they do create also fictional characters completely, and I like this as well. It works. In historical fiction, you can create, fictional characters to make a storyline more plausible, to make a storyline more believable. And they do that really well in that show. Leave your comments down below and I'll have a look and reply to you. Thank you so much for your support, and thank you so much for watching as always. Bye!